What about you?
Pretty much the same. Took the day off, or taking the day off today and Monday. Um, so that's good.
You
Gonna
going?
do, huh?
You going somewhere?
No, no. I'm gonna try to do that Ludum Dare game jam this weekend, and work's been a little slow on work, so I'm like, I'll just take the day off and stuff rather than sitting here and I don't know, just fretting about work all day. Plus, I got to get some crap done around the house before winter comes, so weekends have been packed.
I bought $160 worth of fruits and vegetables last night. I'll try my hardest to get my body right. Modern society makes it extremely difficult to. I know it goes both ways. Some people say, "Oh, it's never been a better time." Imagine what people were eating in the 1800s, but I'm not sure. I'm sure that people probably had farms in the 1800s instead of like I don't know, Captain Crunch and and all these pre-made processed foods. So, anyways,
Yeah, I think that maybe access to better foods is like more, but it's just way easier to access like foods that aren't so good for you. It's easier too because they're like convenient, right?
hmm
Fruits and vegetables, you gotta generally, well, not fruit so much, but vegetables, you might have to peel them or cook them, and same with meat and stuff like that. You gotta prepare it. It's just much easier to grab a bowl of cereal, throw some milk on it, and call it a day.
I tried to be a vegan living in Manila, Philippines. It was pretty much impossible. Like everything is pork. So,
You gotta try the lion diet. What do you mean, man? All meat,
uh,
all the time. Beef.
yeah,
Why
but it
aren't you
doesn't.
like Liver King? Look at that guy.
You know what? I just got hip to liver. I've been eating liver. It's like my third weekend in a row. I
Hmm,
have liver for breakfast on Saturdays.
interesting.
Yeah, I go to a soul food restaurant in Overtown, and then the last time I had liver, which was like last Saturday or Sunday, I think it was last Saturday, I went to Little Havana and had it.
Hmm.
I like liver now. I don't. I hated it when I was a kid, but I just started eating it again.
I was cooking up some for my dog when she was getting sicker, but I remember not liking the smell. I think my parents used to, or my mom used to make like liver and onions a lot. But
Have you ever had chitlins?
chitlins. Why does that sound familiar? Chitlins.
Uh, I think the majority of white people are not familiar with the term chitlins.
Oh, small intestines of a domestic animal. Hmm. No, I've
Oh,
never had it.
I thought it was small intestines of a pig. I didn't know.
Well,
It,
that's yeah, it's an animal.
yeah,
So
but I mean, the way that they define it, it could be a cow, it could be a, a chicken, it could. Uh,
yeah, no, I've never had it. Well, I mean, the intestines used to be used for sausages. I don't know if I've had, you know, I'm sure that they still are, but yeah, I guess no, I've never knowingly had it.
you should tell your wife to whip up some chitlins for dinner tonight. It
Honey,
smells.
make me some chitlins.
It
That's all
smells.
I want in life is some chitlins. Yeah, I could imagine. It doesn't look too bad looking at pictures of it, though.
It smells bad.
I can imagine, though.
Uh,
Stop yawning. I'm trying to think of what the weirdest food I've eaten is, or not weirdest, but
so you know what the origin of chitlins are?
no.
Yeah, my understanding, and I could fact check, but during slavery times, when the slaves uh, basically were handed scraps or the remains, then that's what they cooked up.
Oh,
So
yeah, I could see that. You know,
yeah.
invention is the or necessity is the mother of invention. So
Uh, mm, I've been interviewing.
got to that point, or just your contract's up in October, I suppose.
No, it got extended. I I had my third slash final interview at one organization, and I requested to have another one.
Hmm.
I'm having a habit of requesting additional interviews after interviews are completed
Why?
because one is I think I'm at a point in life where there's I feel like I'm sacrificing more for my time in regards to opportunity costs.
Hmm.
And working as a contractor, uh, I have something that, the grass is always greener, right? But it's pretty relaxed, knock on wood. And if I'm just going to if I'm going to make a transition to alien environment, I I want to know that what I'm giving up um, is of less value than what I'm about to embark on. And I think the worst feeling is when you give up something that's relatively cushy, doing well, paid well,
Hmm.
and then you end up taking a job that you hate. And so I'm trying my best to perform my due diligence. And also, the other part is to be able to have an opportunity to negotiate on better on my terms. So like the interview really didn't ask me to or challenge me to design anything, right? It's a for architect position, but
Hmm.
it didn't ask me to design anything, right? It just asked me what my experience was. Have I worked with X? Have I worked with Y? Have I worked with Z? But it wasn't like design Netflix or design WhatsApp. Like none of those questions happened, and I feel like if I were to receive an offer, I, I think that if I'm able to demonstrate actual architecture skills versus what's on my resume and me saying yes, 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 yeah, I did that, then hopefully I will establish myself as an outlier for any of the other candidates that they interview, and maybe negotiate 20 or 30% more increase on whatever the standard offer would be for that particular organization from that particular organization. So I want negotiating power. That's the summary of why I'm asking for an interview, so I can really demonstrate my skill set. So the offer is based on my skill set and what I could do, all my skill sets, managing the development effort, in addition to Azure and coding, versus HR. Does he have this? Does he have that? Okay, here's the standard offer for this position. No, I want the offer to be for Scott Nimrod and not for this specific rec.
Hmm.
So
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, maybe I should start
now,
interviewing
now,
up
now,
again.
now watch me bomb, watch me
Yeah,
bomb the design.
be like, I want you to ask me to design Netflix.
I
Okay, design Netflix.
already practiced
Oh,
that
I
one.
haven't thought of this one. Or no, I want you to design a distribution center for DVDs.
Yeah,
Uh,
I designed Netflix at Starbucks like 3 months ago. I was going through that exercise when I was practicing interviewing for a solutions architect role.
man. Hey, maybe I should start interviewing a bunch again. I don't know.
I think you should.
Told my
Just because you
yeah,
interview doesn't mean. I mean, you can interview for entertainment.
I know. Told my I kind of told my manager finally that I'm like, yeah, I'm really not getting having much in the way of engagement, and just kind of like having a hard time finding motivation to work on any of the stuff that we're being given to work on. So I don't know. It's kind of like, well, it sounds like we got to find a big project for you. And I'm like, yeah, but
that you
the
have
thing for
influence on.
yeah, well, it's not so much influences. I want to move on a big project with the business rather than saying like carving out a little like chunk for me to have to do on my own. Like I was really engaged a few months ago working on this other project because we had designers working on it, we had the business doing research, like we're doing development, ideation, and also I'm helping with the that kind of work because I like the product side of development, um, and being closer to like being more of like a product minded and thinking about the end user and trying to empathize with them and think through the logical, like the how logical it is to go one way or another based on the designs and stuff like that. So, but like projects where you just pick it up and there's not like any momentum behind the rest of it is just pretty lame. Like the rest of the business, like there's nobody driving it but you. I don't, I don't know. It's like if it's not important to the business, don't just give me something because it's something that, you know, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Um,
You're not interested in doing architecture work
I,
or
lo-
an architecture role
I like so I don't. It's like depends on the level. Like I
where you
like
don't code.
I could be that way if it's design type work, but what I don't like is I'm finding more and more I really just don't like anything ops related or like infrastructure related in terms of like I don't care like at all how like the server layout, the physical layout
The
of a deployment.
Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
how configurations are set up, and like I feel like architecture is a lot about those concerns. There's some architecture that isn't. I like thinking about domain problems.
yeah,
I
I
like
think
thinking
you're.
about separation of concerns, and I like interfacing with the business folks.
Nah, you're right. Like I think like 95% of businesses, and it really doesn't really have to be hardcore enterprisey. They really care about vendor tools
Yeah,
and networking, and that's their architecture. And it very rarely is the architecture really based on like the business domain. I've I've observed that so many times, and it's kind of
yeah,
interesting because in programming, when they refer to architecture, usually based on my experience in programming, like textbooks and stuff like that, YouTube videos that are like C sharp centric or Java centric, they're talking about like the business domain. But at companies, like they're talking about like networking and security vendors and Okta and
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
don't
I'm
don't get
not
me wrong.
interested in
I
that either.
Yeah, I mean, I like thinking about those things from an abstract level, like in terms of service design. Like maybe like if you need to have something that needs to spin up, like to be able to handle load, right? And it's like you have some sort of processor maybe, and it's going to be responding to like a queue or like an event stream or something like that, and you need the ability to spin that up to churn through it. Thinking about how to break out that chunk into like a separate deployable unit, like that kind of stuff, it's okay. Like just thinking about the actual like how data flows through the system and where there might be bottlenecks and stuff like that. But you're right, actually like being like, oh, how do we actually get that to work in terms of the scaling up or monitoring, you know, alerts across the system and looking at CPU usage and thread counts and blah blah blah. and I just setting up build and release pipelines, what all any of that, all the way from that to that, it's like, man, I don't want to think about all that. I don't care. I don't care. Um,
Yeah.
like, oh, just throw more resources at it. I don't want to be like, you figure out how to make this like within the confines of, like, I feel like there's specialties within those realms. Like there are like DBA type people. Like they're the perfect example of how things I think should work. Like DBAs, developers know enough to get the application, and then you've got like DBAs or like data architects that come in and like help you make it better because they're specialized in understanding the tools. And it's like I like DevOps as a movement, man. I hate it. I actually think ops is much better, or like having a platform engineering team would be much better than doing like DevOps, because it's just there's so much you have to think about as a developer. It's like, man, I don't know. But actually, I wish there was a role like that was more aligned with this idea of like a product-minded software engineer, um, where you are more engaged with the product team, and then
Isn't that called a startup?
maybe, although they've had them at other ones. You find articles if you search for product-minded engineer. I just wish there was like more of a codified role. It's like you, but it's really like a specialty role within a group, right? You might have developers who are better at testing. You might have better developers who are better at ops. You might have better developers that are better at small coding problem type things.
Have you ever worked at a shop where developers were really good at testing? Not they wrote tests. I'm talking about they were really good at how they engineered tests.
Oh, engineer test? No, not really.
Me neither.
No, no. But I mean, I just attribute that to being like
Oh God.
engineering tests is, I don't know. I mean, the maybe the best thing that I've seen, and it's not so much that how they engineered the test, because I still think it was super cumbersome, but it was the way that they interfaced with their QA people was really good. At one of my last gig at one of the teams, like they got to the point where they could just write the acceptance tests, and then the QA people would like work with them on it, and then they would just, if those approved, they'd be like, yep, yeah, you can push it to whatever. We don't have to do manual testing on it.
Pull requests, in my experience, yield very little value.
Yeah, I agree. That I
Oh my
actually
God.
suggested,
I say this like almost every day.
you wanna have a call, like a conversation about where
I'm the
people
only
just
person that leaves actual feedback and mark that like literally like tears people. I won't say tear, but
yeah,
like oh my,
it's a learning opportunity to
oh my
share with like
God, it just
junior
gets
people. Like,
immediately approved. Like the policy is like two people were required to approve it, and I'll see
yeah,
like a
it's
pull
dumb.
request, and then like within like 2 minutes, it's already approved, and I'm like, oh, let me look at this. My God, and I'll just start whipping up all these feedback items, and I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, why? Like, what's the point of doing this if this yields no value at all?
Yeah, we
None.
we brought that.
Like,
So we brought up in our like stand-ups once, like, hey, like we got to get better at getting to PRs quicker and stuff like that, so we can get things moving. And I'm like, well, here's a good idea. How about we don't require people to PR, and it's totally on the developer whether they want to request feedback or not. Like, I know we all make mistakes, but let's just get it into the environment and break it quicker. And because if it works, I mean, and that now, and maybe it's dependent on like the type of like where you are at your skill level, because like 90% of my PRs, 99% of them probably are just rubber stamped. 99% of yours are rubber stamped.
no,
99%
I
of
don't
yours
submit
are.
PRs.
Yeah, well, I mean within my org, and
Everybody
then
else
like,
does. I don't.
and then you've got some more junior developers where yeah, like PRing their stuff is very good because it's a good chance to knowledge transfer, but it almost shouldn't be just like leave
Oh my
comments. It's like
God,
let's
no.
actually come up and talk about it.
I look at code that. is borderline deplorable, and it's like approved, like green check marks on Azure DevOps website. And I'm like, WTF? Like, and then I look at unit tests that do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what I'm saying. It's like, man, it's like,
yesterday I looked at a unit test that tested that a method that was executed once. That was the unit test. And there was two unit tests that did the same thing, where it literally and it was using some mocking framework.
yeah, do you
The,
have a
like,
requirement for code coverage? That'll do that to you.
yeah,
That'll do it to you. You'll
yeah.
come up with tests to meet the thing. Once the measurement becomes the freaking goal, it ceases to become a good measurement. That's like a
No,
rule.
no. The setup was like half a dozen lines of like some mocking library, like lines of code. Like this mocking library created a request. This mocking library created a response, and then the verification part of the test verified that the method was called one time. And I'm like, what is this test actually doing? Like, what? This mocking library has literally like fabricated a request and more importantly a response. We're not testing a response. We're not even testing if we're not testing a response and we're not testing a mutation of a property, aka a state change. What is the purpose of this test? What is it doing? How did this get approved by two different senior developers on a pull request? And this does absolutely nothing. Like,
It gets code coverage though,
I'm
and
gonna have
that's
to
the
delete this
metric, man.
video. This video is gonna get me fired.
There's so much cargo code development within like software development. It's just like we've what I hate is that, the idea of doing some of these things and trying to find a way was replaced with, now there's a burden on you to do these things, even if it doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
So it's like code coverage statistics is the big one for me. It's like you will basically just get people who fill in the blanks and don't think about whether it needs to, because there is a cost to doing tests. There is a cost to it, and nobody talks about the cost. And it's like there is a cost to doing it, and if you can make good tests that actually find bugs, like those might be
Yeah.
valuable.
I
But
mean,
tests like that just test to that a method that the implementation details call a method once. Like, look with your eyes. It does that.
and it was pull requested, and it got approved by two
Yeah.
seniors.
And so testing is like, and I've written that kind of crap before, because you have to if you're trying to cover all of the bases, and you're like, well, I need to write an assertion here. What should my assertion be? Well, I'll just make sure it calls this once. It's like I've done that before, just because it's like you're expected to write tests, and it's like, no, like what I want to test is that the business case type thing. And I've gotten to the point where I don't ever want to write unit tests ever for anything that's purely like a CRUD based app. Like if it's not doing business logic, I don't I like it'll take me 5
Yeah.
seconds to make sure I can insert, update, and delete something. It's like you might as well be testing the database. I mean, like whatever. It's like this. I might
Yeah.
want to unit test small bits of like, if somebody has over $5,000 in sales and
Conditions.
this, then they should be converted to a gold star member versus this. So business rules, right, within that framework, and it's mostly to document them, right? Or I might put like tests in place to document something that's dynamic that I couldn't like statically type well. That like here's an assumption I made that totally somebody could miss and break. And I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I've done some stuff like that before, where it's like if somebody doesn't understand what we're trying to do here, and I can't think of a better way to structure this, they might just add something and break it. So maybe I'll write a test to make sure that, like, just as a sanity check, say, hey, like, oh, like if you're using reflection requires a lot of unit tests, just because like you don't know what people are going to change on an object without knowing, like, uh, you know, like for instance, maybe you have something where you assume all the properties are supposed to be public or something like that, and now you get somebody adds a private one and poof, blows up. You just write a test that asserts that before and then documents why the case was made to do this and what they need to do to fix it. So like documentate tests as documentation make a
Uh,
lot of
I
sense to me.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Like 10 years ago, I used to think, nah, everything requires a unit test. And then like I learned F sharp, and I'm like, yo, this compiler,
is the unit test case.
if you do some thoughtful design with with your declarations and the type system, like your compiler is a set of business equations that is the specification that your conditional statements is really an interpreter of. Like it's kind of a test already. Like, do I really need to write a unit test to call something when the business equation enforces it through the compiler, or the compiler enforces a business equation that this code is based on? Is there how much return on investment is this unit test going to really be? And so yeah, and I'm kind of dealing with that now.
Do you think that if you mapped on the timeline the adoption of dynamic languages and the adoption of unit testing, that they would be along the same curve in terms of things? Because I'm thinking about it and like like really unit testing, like you can test small bits of things within a dynamic or in a statically typed language, and you can get a lot out of it. Like if you make an email like type, for instance, and you validate that it properly, correctly validates an email, you never have to write a unit test, and you use that within your type signatures. You never have to write unit tests on any other thing that validates that the email was validated or anything. So it's inherent to the type, right? And so now you've just removed potentially like millions of places of unit tests where inbound validation might be done. Uh, you know what I mean? But if you're doing a dynamic language where you don't have that strength where you can't strongly type something, like you have to technically unit test every single spot, like to ensure that it does like not let through a bad email address.
Was that a rhetorical question?
No, I'm just thinking about like the nature of like unit tests to dynamic languages
Yeah, I think
and how they're like I feel like dynamic languages like the use of Node and Python and that probably like brought on more of it, and that functional languages and statically typed languages require less in terms of testing because you can just design the system to make sure that you, to make sure
it
things are
requires
modeled correctly.
less if I think you've had that revelation of how to structure your code where the by leaning on the compiler.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think the majority of people haven't had that revelation. I think um, I think through the use of smart constructors and a very I think through the use of smart constructors and domain modeling, like you can remove, I would argue, probably up to 70% of unit tests that you would normally write, probably more. But the majority of developers, like, they don't domain model. They don't qualify who can call the method, right? The APIs that they set up um, are really agnostic about permissions and roles of a client that can call it. So they don't really model based on domains anything, which kind of requires more automated tests. And until people start reading books on modern ways to develop software to reduce the amount of code to QA it, then yeah, I'm just
yeah,
blabbing right now.
yeah. And I think we talked like I think like and I think we've talked about this before, so we probably don't need a dead horse, but like user level or automated tests at the full integration level, like that stuff is worth like a billion unit tests. Like you can have so many unit tests and your whole system could just be shit in terms of when you put it together. It's just it doesn't work. Like like all it
Yeah,
does is yeah.
I'm dealing with something where like, hey, this code isn't the code that the infrastructure that you wrote isn't testable. I'm like, the hell it is? What are you talking about? They're like, no, like you declared everything as static methods. I'm like,
It's super testable then.
I'm like, okay, well, we have to create a wrapper over your class of static methods, um, so that we can expose a interface so that we can mock things out. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because we want to make sure that, for example, logging, uh, the logger gets called and it's logging what we expect through a unit test.
Is there any requirement in the business like things to say log this to the
No,
no?
no, no. The short answer is no. But I'm like, I mean, that's not really a business requirement. But I'm like, okay. But and it took me like maybe 60 seconds, and I'm like, have you considered using like a func or a delegate? I mean, they're more granular and they map specifically to a method signature, and you don't have to do it for an entire class. And then I got silence. Like, I didn't respond. So it's like,
Oh yeah, it's an
I
interface.
yeah.
A
I
delegate
mean,
is an interface.
there's likely still some alterations, right? So you're
Yeah,
passing in a delegate as a type parameter for a method, and
yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah, I will share with you. I did that once in a project. Actually, I started using delegates to try to pass around.
you
I
freaked
found
out
that
your developers.
no. I found that
Hey, Gambler.
the tooling in Visual Studio, like if you're doing .NET development, this is potentially a problem. But the tooling doesn't lend itself to being able to like easily understand like how things are composed. If you're using like the dependency injection system to do it, like it's a little bit tricky to understand the like what actually implements this delegate because you're not going directly to it from where you start.
It
But if
doesn't
it's
have.
static, it's like if as long as you're not using anything that's IO bound, I mean,
So if you do a Shift F12 in Visual Studio on a parameter that
yeah,
is essentially a func,
it'll bring you
um,
to the delegate. Um,
but you should be able to look at the references too, right? For IntelliSense.
yeah, so I'm trying to think about. So what I was doing is I was trying to validate a host name to make sure that it matched certain requirements. For one, to make sure it was a valid host name, but then two, to make sure it was actually like there were some prerequisites that required like things to get um, hooked up. And I was trying to test this thing, so I created a oh gosh, what did I call it even? Um, well, I did use an interface for that. Where did I? Oh, the entire like check of being like yeah. So I created a delegate called verify host name, basically, which took a host name and some other information, and then created a like actually executed a method, basically. Um, and so I pass in this verify host name method through the or this function or whatever, and yeah, it's just finding that again and understanding like how it's composed because it's just so different than it's just a lot more different than like what people are used to seeing. Like it might be easier just to make an interface around it and then just because you're basically just wrapping a delegate with a type class type, which makes it easier to use in certain contexts.
Yeah.
But I think if you did it, maybe if you got into the habit of structuring things differently in C sharp, you could make this work. It's just not with the way that the current, like, not with the way that C sharp's been designed, or not C sharp, but ASP.NET Core and stuff has been designed for dependency injection and stuff like that. Trying to mix the two paradigms is really wonky. Like, I don't know. I do have this dream in my head though of having, like, writing like very small, like a series of extremely small functions and testing every little extremely small function, and then building and then just composing from there, and like saying, okay, I compose these two things. Now the combined behavior should be this, and then writing a test around that, and just building up in small chunks all the way up to just writing one big function that does everything for like a specific use case or call or something like that. But I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. It might be totally forgot to mention. I've got a like a hard stop at, like, I think 7:20 Central is probably the latest I can go. So I gotta be off in like 11 minutes or so.
Have you officially started your Ludum Dare or whatever it's called?
So it starts at 6 tonight, Central Time again. I think it's 6 Central. I haven't like put anything together for it yet. Done the I've done the like theme voting and stuff, but I kind of feel like I need to get something done this time. Like, I've tried the last so many times, and like it's getting ridiculous. Like, I just need to focus and prove to myself that, yeah, I can still do like rapid development within a small time frame.
Are you going to live stream it?
Probably not, because I don't think I haven't my old machine kind of busted, and then I bought a new machine, because I think the motherboard might be hosed. Um, and I just haven't got the streaming set up. So I'd have to get like OBS installed. I'd have to you know, get like hooked into YouTube, and
I use StreamYard and it connects to Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter.
you pay for that though, right?
They have a free version.
Pricing. Free screen sharing, banners on screen,
Yeah, when you have like 170
streaming
videos,
limits.
then
Yeah.
you usually have to pay something.
Hmm.
But when you have 50 gigs of content, you usually have to pay something.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, OBS Studio always worked before too, but I don't know. Maybe I'll try to set it up. I don't know. See if I have time today before the thing actually starts. I gotta get an oil change. I gotta do some other crap today, so I even have to just jump on work for a few minutes to check something. So, but yeah, I don't know. I wanna build something. I just gotta try to keep it simple and just accept like a simple. No, I don't have a Twitch channel. I was doing some YouTube streaming, like, it's almost like 2 years ago now, but you know what? I maybe streamed on Twitch once or twice, but I did Facebook streaming for a while too. Actually, that was
You
kind of fun.
should, next time you get on Twitch, you should stream writing code in a hot tub. Are
So
you
then I can
familiar with
drop
the
the
hot
keyboard
tub?
in and go, ah! Drop the computer in. Yeah.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
No.
So on Twitch, it's
Oh,
probably
the hot, just like hot tub channels or whatever.
yeah, the girls in the hot tubs and like the thirsty guys that donate money to them and
The
they like
Simps,
write their
what they
name
call
on their like on like their arm, shoulder, or chest or whatever,
Jeez.
and it's like a whole bunch of them. I'm like, God damn, like give me some ovaries so
Yeah.
I could just talk about absolutely nothing and people are giving me money just to talk with little clothes on. Yeah, it's these generations are only getting worse. Well, we have 8 more minutes.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get depressed because I'm having a hard time disconnecting from the news.
Man, just stop
I'm
looking at it.
literally getting depressed.
Stop
Like
looking at it. You can't do anything about it for the most
here,
part.
but like my YouTube feeds are all about military, cartels, gangs, and prison. So like, it's all about violence. Like my YouTube feeds, because that's like what I'm interested in. Like, and this whole like war thing is really like depressing me, man. Like it's like I might have to see a therapist to try to like get through life because this thing is like I'm being inundated with just images and it's not good. So
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be yeah. There's yeah, I mean it can be really like a drag on your mental health to pay attention to all of that shit. Um I don't know, man. It would probably be bubble myself to positive messages only. Yeah. See, Gambler's got it figured out.
I think I might have to, which I find really hard to do. I don't want to uninstall YouTube, but man, I get notifications after notifications of like mass graves and
Manage your
bombings
notifications, man.
like my stuff used to be like astronomy and
Yeah,
like
get back
F
into
sharp,
that.
and now it's just all about war and body parts. So
Yeah, get back into that, or get into stuff like it's fun like music reaction videos. Just get into something like that.
okay,
I started like I've got some now where um like I got this gal that I watch who does
I don't know if you can see
vocal.
it, but grizzly bear versus wolf pack, who would win? All right, like I get inundated with YouTube notifications like every 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, you gotta get that turned on. Just turn your notifications off. Have you ever watched this series? I started watching this series. There's like one season on Netflix and the rest is on Hulu. So like Hulu was like seasons 1 through 7, and then like 8 is on Netflix because they must have bought it. But it's called Alone. They basically like take 10 people that are kind of survival type people, and they drop them
In
into
Alaska.
a. They'll drop them in just different environments, right? The unfortunately season 1 and the season 8, which are the two that I've started. I watched season 8 because it's on Netflix, and then I went back and watched season 1, and they're like, it's like one is due west, like maybe like 300 miles or something from the other one. So, but it is a different like environment. But so then they just see who can stay out there the longest. And I don't know, man. It's kind of a good like just kind of a fun thing that I like.
Are
Now I
they
just
all
want to go
men?
get dropped. No, no. The first season was, yeah. It actually said in it like 10 men remaining. But this last season it was there were I think there were two females in it. One of them made it to the top three. So, and
I
that's because
would
her
not.
shelter was bomb, probably.
Yeah, I would
So
not survive. I can't do anything with my hands.
yeah, it's they build these shelters and stuff.
I'm
It's
not a
pretty cool.
killer. Like I can't stab an animal. I can't shoot an animal. I'm sure if I get hungry enough, I just have to like get depressed and do it.
Yeah,
I still can't imagine shanking like a rabbit with a prison shank just so I could eat it. I can't imagine doing that.
well, the snares usually take care of that. But the one guy in the last season, he's like, at least once in everybody's life, they should be as hungry as feel hunger to the point where they will gladly suck the eyeball out of a rabbit's skull to eat it because he's like, this is so good. Yeah, it's gross, but I mean, if you
I don't.
experience real hunger, anything probably tastes like amazing, like bugs and everything. I'm assuming. I've never been in that situation, but
I mean, I would die because I would basically be like a toddler in the forest, like very
yeah.
helpless.
Well, yeah. The biggest thing is like I guess there is a risk of getting like mauled by a bear or like a cougar or wolves or something like that. But
Dying from dehydration,
well, yeah,
organ failure because
yeah,
you drank the wrong thing or you ate the wrong thing.
yeah. In a real situation, yeah. I mean, here they have med checks and stuff like that, and there's safety protocols that they have in place. So like they had to pull like two or three people out of the thing because they just lost too much weight. Um, but that's why they only send in people who are generally trained survivalists, I guess, at least to a certain extent. Like, I mean, you need to boil water and you need to be able to identify edibles probably to eat things like, oh, I can eat this mushroom and oh, I can't eat that mushroom, or oh, I can eat these onions are onions, not something else. But I don't know. You should
Uh,
watch an episode if you're just looking for something to veg out on, though. It's pretty good.
I will probably end up being a cannibal.
Yeah.
Look at the cameraman. Pull out my shank.
Dahmer. Yeah.
I'll refuse to watch that.
Yeah, not gonna watch it either. My wife was watching it, I think, but
You,
not interested.
what state was that in?
I don't know.
He got it bad though in prison. The way he was killed. He got killed with a prison mop.
Ohio and Wisconsin.
He killed in both states.
I don't know.
I mean, Ohio
Probably.
sounds. I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer was in Ohio. I mean, Ohio's known for like
He's
locking
Milwaukee.
locking people up in basements.
Yeah, it was
And
in Milwaukee.
uh, all right, well, I think
Weird.
time's up.
Yeah, I got to get going here. So,
It's been real.
yep. We'll see you next week.
All right, see ya.
Yep.
Bye. Mm, Gamlor, I think I'm leaving too. Out of curiosity, has there been a spike in your country of? I'm not sure if you really want to call them refugees, right? Because the war is not on their doorstep. But has there been a spike of Russians crossing into? I keep wanting to say Sweden, but it's not Sweden. It's Switzerland. Crossing into Switzerland. What would be nice on this StreamYard app is if it let me know that you were typing. It doesn't, but I don't know. Maybe some. Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your weekend, and I guess we'll catch up. So see ya. Bye.